I've been homeless since February 5th of 2023. I've been on the waiting list for a shelter since that day, and still haven't had a shelter yet, and still haven't had a case manager. So I'm aggravated.
I felt like I lost my mind. Like it was like a war-like situation, a class war, whatever you want to call it.
I put it in emails. I reached out to the management. Nothing was done.
What they've decided to do is unleash a war of repression on the people.
The only way to get what we want is to take it. We have no limits. We'll go after anybody who fucks with the homeless.
Like Fred Hampton said, like, peace to you if you're willing to fight for it.
This is Dare to Struggle and Homeless Liberation Initiative's first forum. It's a forum against the way that homeless people are criminalized simply for existing. And it's also a forum more positively about how we can actually stop that. So yeah, thank you all for coming. I'm gonna hand it off to Lily and Luis to start us off.
Hey. Okay, I'm Lily. I'm with Dare to Struggle. So first of all, thank you all for coming here. Yesterday marked the start of summer, so let's learn some things together today. Get fired up for summer of action. All right, for those of you who don't know Dare to Struggle is a national organization open to anyone who wants to resist and stop injustice. We're not a nonprofit. We don't roll with any politicians, religious groups, or corporations. We're here to stand with the people subjected to the horrors of the American nightmare. We know that radical change only happens when we step outside of routine protests or expecting politicians or other people to do things for us. We organize people, we build relationships, and we train ourselves up to take bold collective action. I'm also here with Louise. Louise is one of our leaders of Homeless Liberation Initiative, or HLI. She has some words to say herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Louise. I'm a leader of Homeless Liberation Initiative. First of all, we want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for coming to our public forum in New Britain, Connecticut. We are glad that everyone can come out today, and it's very important that everyone is here today with us. The system is coming down hard on the homeless people, and it's up to all of us to come together to make it stop. It's up to us to fight the system that's keeping our people down. Homeless Liberation Initiative is a group led by homelessness and formerly homeless leaders alongside Dare to Struggle. The goal of together and train ourselves up to be leaders in this mass movement. The forum that we are having today is going to be about many different things we learned through our work in New Britain and Connecticut. We'll answer questions like, why is the homeless always under attack? Who is to blame for these attacks? What can we do about it? And now, how can we all come together to stop these attacks?
Thanks, Louise. Okay, so at this forum today, we're gonna talk about the real shit that's going on. We're gonna talk about the reality on the ground, what's been tried, and what we need to do to stop the attacks on the homeless. We're tired of Band-Aid solutions and tiny handouts. We're tired of seeing the systems meant to help people being corrupt and inadequate. We want to change this system for good. So before we really get into things, let's get on the same page about what the current state of homelessness is in and around New Britain. And the fact is, it's dire. We should all know that. But the reason we're all here today, and I suspect that you are all here today, is either because you're facing this yourself, or because the way things are out in these streets is not okay, and we need to take it seriously. Recently, we've been going out into the community, and we've been painting the picture for people. So we explained that the shelters are closed during the day. If you go out into a local business, you're gonna be shooed out like you're an animal. Then if you go anywhere else, a public bench, a park, the fast track, even just to sleep, like you're gonna get a $99 ticket for loitering. So you're already on your toes. There's no affordable housing. Your caseworker isn't gonna help you get a place anytime soon. Cops are harassing you. There's no jobs for anybody. Never mind figuring out how to submit an application, show up with clean clothes for an interview. There's not even anywhere to use the bathroom. You're tempted with addiction or already pushing through it. This is serious. People have been dying in the shelters and the streets of downtown waiting to get help. And you'd think the shelters would be on our side. Now, let's not get it twisted, right? Like, these are important services that keep people housed at night, fed, showered. You get casework if you're lucky. But that doesn't mean that we should let them get away with mistreating people. It's quite the opposite, actually. So specifically at the Friendship Center, shelter administrators are making 6 figures while ignoring and amplifying these issues at their shelter. So we're gonna get into more specifics about the shelter later. But I want to bring to our attention the damning fact that instead of fixing the terrible issues in their shelter, and instead of being open and honest about their shortcomings and working with the community to dig up the roots of the homeless struggle, what they've decided to do is unleash a war of repression on the people. We have some damning evidence to prove that the Friendship Center uses control tactics to manipulate people. This is slimy, violent behavior. For over a year, we've heard people say that they can't speak out, they can't join our rallies, they can't even talk to us about the abuse or mistreatment at the shelter because they've been threatened with or fear retaliation. From the end of March through May, we went out to the streets and we surveyed people. We've been asking them, have you ever been too scared to speak out about mistreatment at the Friendship Center because you thought you'd lose your bed, services, or otherwise be retaliated against? So we've been taking out this survey to people, and we got 8 unique respondents that answered yes. 8 unique respondents told us that they've been too scared to speak out about mistreatment because they feared retaliation. A few of them even told us that they've received direct threats from staff. On top of that, we found that people were even too scared to answer the survey. 3 other people refused to even fill it out because they don't want to be seen talking to us. And this isn't just survey data. One resident, who we're not going to name, but they worked with us for a few weeks. They were trying to help get frontline staff on our side. Suddenly, they decided it's too risky. They sent me a text. They said, listen, I fully align with your values and everything you stand for, but considering others have already lost their bed for participating/protesting with Dare to Struggle, I don't think it's a good idea for me to join. Once my housing becomes a little more stable, and I know I won't get kicked out of the shelter, I will definitely be joining, but right now it just doesn't feel right. This is a text I received from somebody that we've worked with. And while there hasn't been anybody that we can confirm who has actually lost their bed with working with us, this is a real fear. It's been instilled in people's minds, and they're scared of it. They're not working with us because they think they're going to lose their bed. They've been directly threatened that this would happen. Also, at our rally on March 10th, a worker at this library, at the New Britain Public Library, spoke on their personal experiences and the homelessness issues they've witnessed, like personally. A Friendship Center administrator went after their job at the library, hoping that the library would act as their attack dog to silence somebody who is simply calling out the mistreatment they've seen. Again, slimy, violent behavior. So I give these examples as evidence to demonstrate that this is what they do. This is what we need to fight back against. We can't let them get away with these petty, slimy tactics. It may work when they pick out like individuals to chew out and retaliate against, but when we stand up together behind the targets of these control tactics, there's way more of us, and we can stop them from getting away with it. This struggle is serious. There's a lot on the line, but we've seen and we know that dealing with it alone does not usually work out. And it certainly doesn't pressure the people in power to do better so that none of this happens in the first place. So, okay, as Dare to Struggle, as Homeless Liberation Initiative, what have we been doing? We've been taking this fight to the streets and to whoever is facing these struggles and getting people to join us in leading this mass movement to direct our anger into organized action to confront our oppressors and change this shit for good. This year, we held a rally and speak out right outside the Friendship Center to expose the ways they mistreat people and apply pressure. We showed them that we're watching and we're ready to fight back to force them to act less violently. We've been exposing New Britain's tyrants, be it the police giving out loitering tickets, the Friendship Center director testifying the state legislator to increase salaries for nonprofit directors. We expose this shit. We've also put together and distributed newsletters containing stories, the people we meet in the streets, their own stories. We help expose what they're facing, and we share their stories that would otherwise be silent nightmares. We've also been building up HLI and training our leaders to take lead in fighting back against these struggles. We've confronted state police at the fast track who harass homeless people seeking refuge there. We've recently even been successful in driving them away by banding together with the people there and standing up to the cops by sidestepping their nonsense rules. And we're gonna keep doing all of this. We're gonna keep building our numbers, keep finding ways to collectively confront and stop our oppressors. If helping the homeless was profitable, it would be solved in a week. We live in a country that has the means, but the ruling class does not have the will or the care to do so. Instead, our country spends money bombing other countries, extracting their resources, financially manipulating them, and then giving the majority of the people in our country the small little crumbs of those exploited profits. We're here to say fuck that. We're going to demand better and take control of the narrative and the systems at play. When our numbers and power are too great to ignore, we can refuse this idea that our lives should be controlled simply by profit, and instead make our government and the systems around us serve the people and the people's needs and the greater good, rather than just lining the pockets of the top 1%. To guide our work, though, we need to understand the reality of what's going on around us, and we need to draw from past experiences. So that's what we're here to do today, right? Most importantly, we need to all train up together to see more and more small wins that turn into more and more bigger wins. We have some great speakers lined up. We have people who are in the struggle, who are giving us their time to teach us some things today, and we have people who are also here to share their own experiences. You'll see on your printed program here, as Mike just went through, we're going to cover more about the homelessness situation and different attacks faced in New Britain and New Haven. We'll talk about the shortcomings of the shelter system, from mental health to addiction and mistreatment in the shelters. We'll have a former staff and former resident. Then we'll finally talk about the solutions, the limitations of politicians and their policies, and what we're proposing is the way out with our plans for the summer. All right, with that introduction, let's jump into it.
My name is Luz. I'm part of the Terror Struggle. I'm here to talk about my situation with homeless people are facing in New Britain. They provide just give stuff for people like photos and information, but they don't follow. You get your stuff going to meetings, running emails, incomplete, all these tasks, the things that keep constantly busy, but they don't get out on the cycle of the homelessness. Some places, the best they can get there, like to do magic. For example, Gloria House, they give you a place to stay like for 7 days. I appreciate, they help, and they help me, but it's a little like a breath of peace, but they don't back in the struggling every day. If we call 211, they take like 241 on the street. And in New Britain, I can say like, it's not safe for me because I'm going in an abusive relationship. Some people who were abused, they are not like even live in the 241. They change that if you have a job, including if you have an income, they charge you to stay in the shelter. And so I will be able to get an apartment on my own. I can not live in the YMCA or Salvation Army because that's a shelter just for men and for ladies, and they get like priority like for kids, and just a summer program. I can live on CMHA resident because they give you like a roommate, or can be triggered on not a good for someone in recovery. Also, you have to have an income to live there. And for me, it was an income. I need to get a job. I need to have like identification, my paperwork. My staff also was taken a little while ago, so I do like my papers ID. To get a job, I need like money, fees. To get a job, none of these providers help me to. That gave us the staff information, and it's not a simple. We need like to follow. We need like support, like getting not only to the info, the papers. Do you do it? Is to get the whole kind. You have to do an intake to get a waiting list, and you can be like on waiting list for weeks, either months before you get the help for some places. For every task of issue you need to help with it, you need to like a new intake, and one-on-one have other hours. Once that you complete the intake and get waiting list with a staff, either to see provide like a CSP or to do an intake again if you miss on some of the appointment, put you on waiting list. And I think I got lost on start, and I still like doing everything all over again. And it's frustrating and impossible, and to show how the system is not capable to ending homelessness. This is why we need to come together, build our numbers, and life for a new system.
So, hello, my name is Jesse, and I'm going to speak on how the police treat people. If you spend enough time out here, you realize that the police aren't here to help people. They just kick people out and give out tickets. A lot of people notice this and feel this way. It's almost like common sense now. I'll give you an example. If two people are arguing in the street, and the argument is between someone with money and someone who is homeless, it'll be the homeless person that gets in trouble, whether they did something wrong or not. I've seen this go down many times, most recently when I was in downtown Hartford. The police took the side of the person with a nicer looking outfit. The police will mess with you just for looking homeless. The police don't help, they just kick people out. They do this at the fast track and say it's for people's safety and blame it on people who are drinking or using drugs. But kicking people out just makes things worse. Police have a high ego, they're cocky as fuck, and they aren't here to help people. Sure, there might be some nicer cops, but even they are assholes because they are part of the system that puts people down. Recently, a woman at the shelter was sexually assaulted. Neither the shelter or the police helped her or did anything about it. The police said that she couldn't prove that it actually happened. That's crazy because when sexual assaults happen, people are usually scared and alone. They're not thinking about taking out their phone so that they can prove what is happening to them. Knowing that this happened is extremely frustrating to me because I went through something similar in my past. Back then, I was 15, and the police criticized me for not coming forward and reporting what happened sooner, even though I was being stared down and threatened by my attacker in the same room at that time. The police just told me I had to go get a protective order, but they didn't help me at all. They just offered me therapy. Ever since that day, I understood that the police do not serve justice. The police protect the rich, they protect property, and they protect the system that keeps all of us down. It shouldn't be a crime for someone to steal food or something to drink to survive, but in this system it is. That's why we need to fight the system altogether.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for being here, and thanks to Aaron Struggle for putting this on. It's really nice to be connected throughout the entire city, throughout the entire state. Like Mike said, we're from UACT, Unhoused Activist Community Team in New Haven. It's an organization about 3 years old. I'm a newer member, but basically it started, there was an encampment on this larger boulevard in New Haven, LFG Grassland Boulevard, that was, it formed right at the beginning of COVID, and I think because of COVID there was a slight pause on sweeps. So it was actually able to form a fairly tight-knit community, and it was also close to two people that run a Catholic worker house in New Haven. And so they were able to create a lot of networks of mutual support. But unfortunately, after some time, the city decided to, bulldoze the encampment and disperse everybody. Mark and Luz, who live in the house, then opened up their backyard for people from the encampment to sleep there. And out of that also came UACT. So UACT then started to have weekly Friday at noon vigils, protests, marches. Yeah, in front of Town Hall. It has now evolved into lunch and meetings. So it's, yeah, some people around New Haven kind of describe UACT as kind of like a, an unhoused union in a similar way of a tenants union. Yeah, and then with that, other things that we've kind of started doing is we would do a Thursday accompaniment night where some people drive around just to give supplies to people that we formed relationships with, blankets and food and things. But yeah, UACT is also, and then one of the bigger things they did is last fall, they did a nearly 6-week-long encampment on the town green. Not only to bring attention, also as a form of protest, and also as just a place to build community. For that, for that 6 weeks, it was a safe place for people to stay, and that was really incredible. Maybe Alexis or Dave can more about those experiences. But since then, yeah, we've really been working on. We have a people's budget that's trying to counteract the city budget, which involves some things like getting more permanent restrooms downtown, lockers, showers, and storage. But also one of the big things that I get most excited about is also just trying to push the city to designate places, public pieces of land throughout the city where people can stay without getting swept. Yeah, so somewhat of a group of support and yeah, just a thorn in the city side. But yeah, that's basically UACT, and Tammy, I can hand it over to you about New Haven.
Hi, I'm Tammy and I'm homeless. I've been homeless since February 5th of 2023. My husband passed away that day. I was in South Carolina visiting my aunt, and I wasn't able to come back and sign the lease the 1st of February. I was going to wait until the end of February to do so. So since my name wasn't on the new lease, everything had to go through probate. And through probate, my name ain't on the lease, so we were no longer living together. So, since February 5th of 2023, I've been homeless. That said, if you're married, get a will. You never know when your partner's gonna decide to leave you. I've been on the waiting list for a shelter since that day, and still haven't had a shelter yet. Did 7 CAN assessments. and still haven't had a case manager yet. So I'm aggravated. You know, yes, I do not look homeless because of the fact that I go to the truck stops and take my shower. I sleep in my tent. But I do wash, take my showers, and thank God for my friend's backyard that he's letting me put my stuff in his shed. You know? But as being clean and sober going through this, I've got 30 years clean and sober. And it's hard.
So thank you guys for coming up. Something I'm curious, and people here might be curious as well, is y'all are in New Haven. Y'all are seeing this stuff firsthand. You've had some fights against the city of New Haven. What have those fights been like?
Getting in front of the mayor's face, cussing him out, calling him a moron, being on TV, getting arrested. But at this point, somebody has to make that stand.
Yeah. 100%.
Somebody has to make the stand.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
It's good to hear that that's happening down there. So, is there anything else y'all would like to speak on, like as you act, as people in New Haven?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing coming from New Haven, we end up having a lot of conversations about policy change versus just attempting to squat on land and take land and provide care for each other in the midst. Our mayor specifically, I think he's actually pretty well hated throughout the entire state as we have one of the most despicable. But I think we have a lot of people in our group that have been speaking specifically to the same people for 20 years now, and so there's a lot of questions now about what it would look like to maybe transcend a lot of the policy discussions and try and create other networks of care and power for each other, especially, and I think this is why a lot of times we get really excited about this, public land where nobody can be swept on. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thank you again for coming all the way up here. And speaking on that, I think it's important to know that people in New Britain aren't alone in this fight, and people in Hartford aren't alone. It's people in other places are fighting, and not just again going to the legislature, going to the public meetings, but really getting in these people's faces and making it impossible for them to ignore, and kind of putting a fear in them that we're gonna be everywhere. You can't get rid of us. So thank you again. And I just wanted to say, we'll kind of get into the Q&A portion now. So if anyone has any questions for us, we'll do that for 10 minutes on this section.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the bathroom situation like in New Haven around the green? Is there a public bathroom, and then what is DUAC been working on around that issue?
Thank you. Yeah. That's actually been one of the bigger fights, is because specifically as a justification for sweeping encampments, the mayor has made a huge habit of specifically using the word feces, and so the biological hazards. Therefore, it's unsafe environment for anybody. Therefore, we had to come sweep, which is very bogus, especially while. There is no public bathroom in New Haven. For a while, there was porta potties on the green that they let go to waste to say, oh, look, we can't have anything because it just gets disgusting. And so, none of the neighborhoods have public bathrooms. It's a abysmal situation, especially since it's getting used as a justification for terrorizing, not just unhoused people, but specifically when unhoused people try and congregate to care for each other better. Tammy, I don't know if you have. Yeah, but it's been a huge fight, and a lot of, specifically one person, Carl, has been at the forefront of the fight and really documenting, that even, how often the city was saying they would clean even the porta potties wasn't true. Yeah, and yeah, so now, right now, they have City Hall open till midnight right now, but that's like a very temporary thing, so we'll see. And even, I think they're going to open a cafe and try and consider that cafe as a public bathroom, even though like a couple of proprietors of the Green have admitted that it wouldn't be necessarily open to everybody, but they'll try to use it. So that's a very it's a very dismal bathroom situation in New Haven. Unless you have the Yale ID card, then you have public bathrooms everywhere. But not everybody has those. Very few people that have them actually. So
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone around here wants to speak on the bathroom situation in downtown, but kind of the same, it's the same deal. Like there's no public bathrooms around here. There used to be like in Central Park like decades ago maybe. But yeah, any business, it's very like hostile. I know like the assembly room sometimes, but even then they get pretty like mean, like just straight up mean to people, like, oh, you can't be here. Super messed up. I mean, a human like survival function, everybody needs to go to the bathroom. We've heard people who said that they couldn't go for so long that they got like a UTI. Like it's a health issue. And it's just inhumane. So, but yeah. Yeah, Marielle?
Yeah, the other day I went to Dunkin' Donuts. I wanted to use the bathroom. They wouldn't let me use it because I didn't buy anything.
The one in New Bright?
They wouldn't let me use it because I didn't buy anything.
Right. Inhumane. There was a question in Yellow Hat.
What do you think about the bathrooms in the public library, the New Haven Public Library? I know it closes on Sunday, but like every other day.
Yeah, I mean, that is an option, and it's, the libraries are very popular places, so it just becomes like there are so many people trying to use them that it's just not enough to actually solve, to actually address a public need and a public issue, and and they have hours, and it's overnight specifically that is there's a more particular need.
I would just say like definitely libraries are this like safe haven that we found. Like, people hang out, there's like bathrooms, but it's real. I feel like it would just be like the hours, where it's like, it's Sunday, they're not open. Like, damn, I can't, I can't go to the bathroom. But yeah, not a bad thing. I think, believe you had a question? Yes.
Yeah, I believe this person said something about Dunkin' Donuts bathroom not being able to be used. Well, I'm not homeless, and I went to Dunkin' to use the bathroom, I couldn't use it either. So it's not just for the homeless. I couldn't use it either because they don't have a public. They say it's not for the public.
Right.
So I believe it's just for those that are going into purchase something.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, because they let me use that.
Yeah. No, and like they should have let you use the bathroom. You know what I mean? Like it's like, hey, like, why have it?
But they have their own rules and regulations. You know what I'm saying? So if that's what they have put in effect, then.
Yeah, I guess like everyone's has a right to their own rules and regulations, but like when we're talking like using the bathroom, it's such like a basic human thing. It's like, I get it, people got their things, like, okay, like maybe like you can't light fireworks in here, like that. Nobody wants fireworks going off in their Dunkin'. But like using the bathroom, it's just kind of one of those things. But I'm gonna move on. Yes.
I would also just add that like sure it's a rule, but it is a rule that disproportionately impacts poor people or people who have no money. Because if the rule is you can use the bathroom if you buy something, well, that's not going to harm rich people more than it harms poor people. So like, it still works out in a way that is unfair. So it's like, it's tricky, you know?
Yeah.
I could voice it.
Yep. I believe we had another hand. Anyone else? Oh, yeah. Luz, yeah.
Yeah, but I have a question. I just want to mention something that passed here in Britain.
Yeah.
Either you go McDonald's, Taco Bell, or other places,
Yeah.
you can use the bathroom and use the Wi-Fi, but you don't have no plug. Either you buy anything, they got like limit time. Because either you go McDonald's, it's 30 minutes until you be in the store. If
Yeah.
they see you more than that, they tell you need to move.
Yeah.
Either don't, the places you can be during the day. Is that here in Britain, they use the library and senior center, like a morning center, either for cleaning, either the 241 is offered only for residents living in a shelter, but the 61 is in the R Street. You can be there over there during the day. They don't have employments no more, working Saturday and Sunday. And after 4, you by yourself. And after the April 1st, they don't care, to do intake. And they need to see you now if you're really homeless to help you, either to try to get an intake. Because I've been a couple of friends and they don't want to see them. They just give them the number, they want to know where you sleep to help you to either get an intake or get a bed or anything.
Yeah, it's like the things are there, they're scattered, it's only for limited hours, it's not doing what it needs to be doing, You had a question for New Britain?
Yeah, no, I've just always been curious, as groups like, trying to look and work through and push for the rights of unhoused people, what has like the coalition building been in New Britain? Like maybe one of the groups that you work with? And yes, more specifically, I feel like you act, maybe more so like as individuals or, in our chats or whatever, we've, I guess just to say, there were some people that got into, maybe it was temporarily housing, that were formerly unhoused into this place in New Haven called the Village Suites. But then the Village Suites got bought by, for $15 million from somebody in Brooklyn. And they actually said, well, we need to push them all out because, we have to transfer them to develop them to multi-family apartments. Who knows if they'll get, if they'll be affordable or maybe even in the future they'll get tax abatements from the city. But, there's been a lot more talk about, specifically like developments being built, and a lot of times, my mind's going a little fake. But basically, this coalition building, maybe specifically with any like tenants union or other people doing it with other affordability crisis issues as well. I was kind of curious how the entire ecosystem of was working in New Britain, or if there was any coalition.
Okay, so the question's like, have we worked with like many groups around here? Yeah. Okay. We work with groups, if we like have a common goal or we approach things in a very similar way. Like if we come across a group that's doing like, oh my God, like this landlord just bought out the place and they're kicking out all these people, and like a group is like of people's like trying to like work around it. We'll work with groups. It's kind of just like we have to like meet with them, talk with them, like see what they're doing, see how we could like work with them, like stuff like that. Then you mentioned the thing in New Haven. Is the kind of question like, how can we like get people down to like stop that eviction? And maybe we could talk about this like to the side, maybe. But I guess like the answer to your question is like, we definitely like. We work with people, we just gotta like sit down, talk with them, make sure we're like aligned and like are down to do the same things, and But we can definitely talk. Any other questions before we get into the break?
Yeah, I can like add to that a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I guess like specifically working with other groups, like there are certain things where like we we have to like establish that there's like a common goal between like our group and another group, and there's certain things that we just straight up don't do, like as Dare Struggle, as Homeless Liberation Initiative. Like we do not like pander to politicians. We don't go to politicians and like beg them for humanity, right? Like our whole thing is about like building people power, like building power among like us, like the everyday people, and like demanding that that should change. Like we don't do this like reformism, like that type of thing. So like groups who are kind of down for that, like that's their theory of change as well, like absolutely. But people who are like, oh, like just vote for this person, or like, oh, just like go testify for this legislation, like fundamentally that's not how we orient ourselves on this issue.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I grew up in New Haven, and down there, yeah, the bathrooms suck. Even Starbucks, you can't go in Starbucks and use the bathroom. They'd be like, nah, you buy coffee, you can't go in here. Is there any way we can organize money and like just build a place? I think of like a collective, like community-wise, like the community can get together. I struggle to put together some location, some spot in the neighborhood where we can just put a place where we want to go.
That's a good idea.
No, and like definitely
Some
like
like try to fit into their box. I mean, like they're always saying like you're not allowed.
yeah.
So you can't get in, but we can build our place.
No, and like that like it sounds good, right? It's a good idea. It's like direct to the point. The thing is, right, we have to like there's so many like loopholes we have to get through for that. There's like, oh, like we gotta get the money together, which we can fundraise, right? But then it's like, oh, then you gotta go through the board and then the zoning committee and then blah blah blah. And we just want to say like this group right here, and like people can go and do that, but this group right here, like our theory change is like, oh, like this building is vacant, or like, oh, this like landlord's kicking people out, like screw that. We're gonna get all the people together and like prevent them from doing that, and like making them do the work for us, right? That's just this group. Like if people want to go do that, that's cool. Like we totally are like, we would like support that. We'd be like, yes, go check them out.
I grew up in the rock scene down in New Haven. There's this thing called the ATC. It's like the MD Team Center. It's a space for like people to express their music and artistic stuff.
What's it called? Sorry.
It's called the MD Team Center.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It was like a different part of like the 203 atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's a place for like teens to go express themselves, and that's what I love about like the 203 side of the state. I think we could build something like that for like people who need more stuff. And if we get the community involved, I don't think it'd be that hard to just get a space and like just.
Yeah, no, and like that's something that is like a good thing. It's just not like what Dare to Struggle does is not like that, but it is like a good idea. Like it is a good idea, and like we would support something like that, you know, and like contribute to it in the ways we contribute to like political struggle, right? Like we get people together, we get them mad, and we get those in charge to meet our needs, right? So that's just like our approach. But I mean, if people start something like that, we'd support it. So, but yeah, thank you for that. Thank you. We're gonna have a section that talks about, you know, when I say shelter system, I mean like mental health services. I mean everything that should be in place to help people get back on their feet, but is lacking in many respects. So there's mental health, there's addiction, and then we're gonna have a former staff member and a former resident talk on the mistreatment and the neglected shelters like the Friendship Center. So we're first gonna start with mental health, so I'm just gonna pass it to Jesse.
Thank you. Hey everyone, my name is Jesse Matthews. I am from New Britain, Connecticut. I'm also a member of HLI and Dare to Struggle. I was born and raised in New Britain, Connecticut. I've been part of Homeless Liberation Initiative for over a year now, and I've been through bouts of homelessness since 2011. The last one being from 2019 to 2021. I would like to talk about my experiences of being homeless with mental health disorders. how they make homelessness way worse, and how the shelter system, or how the shelter and healthcare system fails to address it. For homeless people with mental health disorders, it's two struggles at once. A battle with our own brains and a struggle to survive the conditions of homelessness. It can feel impossible to commit to appointments, and I'm not talking about the logistics of getting there and all of the personal belongings we need to drag with us. For those of us with severe depression, it's hard to physically get up. With schizophrenia, a person's brain checks out with reality any moment they're off their meds. When I was living with people and at the Friendship Center, I would sleep half of the day away because of my depression, caused by the uncertainty of my living situation. Questions like, when am I gonna get an apartment? How am I gonna get out of this situation? What would haunt me at the Friendship Center? They didn't pay attention to things like mental health disorders, physical disabilities, or addiction. They basically lumped everyone together and didn't connect us to services to address those health issues. Even my case manager would run away from me. The directors need to train staff to have a better understanding of mental health conditions. What's needed is better dedicated case managers willing to walk us through steps to help us with transportation and stay with us along the way instead of leaving us to fend for ourselves. My autism spectrum disorder, or Asperger's syndrome, makes it difficult to live with other people. Tensions build up with friends I've lived with, and it would get to the point where either I would leave or would be kicked out. I can't blame my friends either because they were also stressed for survival and making accommodations for me to stay with them. While generous of them wasn't exactly helping the stress. Why are all of us stressing for survival while there are plenty of resources? People living on the streets while others are buying second and third homes. People are going hungry, yet locked dumpsters full of food. In general, mental health services are not great or accessible. Medicare doesn't cover services at CMHA like therapy. There needs to be mental health services accessible to everyone. The last thing I want to touch on is the judgmental and stigma. People are quick to judge homeless people with mental health issues as crazy or drug addicts. The stress of being homeless and having mental health issues can result to substance abuse. Instead of judging, we need to help these people.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Jesse. I would like to pass it off now.
Hi everybody, my name is Alexis Terry. I'm with UX Unhoused Activist Community Team out of New Haven, Connecticut. I'm also a member of Witnesses to Hunger New Haven, a group that focuses on issues revolving around food insecurity. I guess I'll just start with like a brief history of like my whole experience around the circuit, if you will, like the unhoused circuit. So I was unhoused for a really long time, way longer than I guess anybody should have to be. First of all, being unhoused is not an experience that anybody needs to go through firsthand to empathize with. It's not something anybody should get used to. And it's sad that so many people go unhoused for like decades at a time, myself included. So I spent like most of my early adulthood unhoused between places, like lacking stability. I eventually did receive housing assistance in 2015. So since then, I've had some housing assistance in the form of a subsidized housing voucher. So 2015, finally got this place. I remember the first night I slept in between the living room and the bedroom. I just slept in the doorway, on the floor, just happy. So grateful. The first year and a half of that lease agreement with that property management company was amazing. I had no complaints. After that, I realized they switched management to a company called Ocean Management, and from there, that's when things started kind of to decline. So it started with the infestation of these little gray mice that you can never get rid of because they reproduce faster than you can spot them. Secondly, the windows, I'm on the 3rd floor, the windows and the back door would blow in during the winter. Because it's outside of New Haven, it's in Hampton, I had to contact the health department to come and finally clock the temperature to, kind of prove, to my housing caseworker and everybody else that it wasn't at 65 degrees as is required by law, especially in the winter. Lo and behold, their temperature meter clocked it at exactly 65 degrees. So, even though my windows and doors were blowing in, it felt like I was living out of a treehouse, I still, it was hard for my case management to prove what the problem was. So that right there, I was lacking adequate advocacy from my case management, and it always made it seem like they weren't trained and had like the mental bandwidth, the capacity to be the appropriate ones to advocate for people, especially if they've never been unhoused themselves. One of my caseworkers, I realized, her mom used to be a state politician, so just off of that, I started to see how her lack of relatability kind of affected my need for advocacy when I was like really vulnerable. 5 years later, got out of there. While I was there, I managed to link up with a therapist that I had for about 6 years. After that, moved into a second place. I immediately had an issue with one of the tenants who was employed by the property management company. After that, immediately the week that my housing caseworker was to help me sign for my second year lease agreement, they decided they didn't want to renew my lease. So it was a month-to-month thing where eventually, I left in about 2 months later. After that, I ended up in a place that my caseworker assured me was the solution to all my problems. Had the exact curtains for the windows matched out. It was a really irregularly shaped window, so, all ready to go. I get there the first night, there's like people stomping above me. It's just like a really unhealthy situation to call home or even like housing. The landlord was unresponsive. It kept becoming up to me to collect proof, document everything. I'm keeping track of emails between me and my caseworker, her confirming that she spoke to the housing management. I'm known to the police department for complaining. They're constantly assuring me that they can't do anything because it's a private residence or something like that. It's a complex, and that complex is called Sunset Ridge. So that was crazy. That really affected my mental health. After dealing with my service provider that I received case management from, I eventually stopped dealing with that organization altogether because I felt betrayed, I felt unadvocated for, I felt alone in that year lease agreement, and I take my contract agreements very seriously. I felt like I lost my mind. Like, I put holes in the wall, I put holes in the ceiling, which were paper thin to begin with, trying to get some kind of sleep. So I was sleep deprived for over a year, and I'm still showing up to, UAC organization meetings and stuff like that. Still trying to be a better professional, still believe in my ability to grow past the trauma I've come from and all of this stuff, but it was too much. It was really a life or death. It was like a war-like situation, a class war, whatever you want to call it. I sought out the help of legal aid after dealing with my second no-cause eviction. The first one was for the previous apartment. But basically, after the end of your lease agreement, they don't have to renew the lease. So that's the technical loophole that everybody's kind of looking down the barrel of. If the cost of living increases every year, how can anybody keep up? Like, what are we setting our kids up for here? And I mean, the same units were going for like $750 like 15 years ago. So has that much renovation been put into all of these things that it now equals to double that amount, which will probably be triple by the time like a 12-year-old is 18 in this year. So all I was saying is like, the fight doesn't exactly stop after, that voucher is secured, or, even when people get the voucher, their caseworkers struggle with this list, I guess, of low income properties that they're trying to find some people have like, evictions on their records, which makes it almost impossible to secure housing anywhere around here. And there isn't very many people at this point that don't have these evictions on their records. No cause evictions, just the term of your lease is up, so you gotta go. And we're gonna rent it out for the same unit that you paid $13.25 for, we're gonna rent it out for $1,600. But in all of that struggle, losing my mind and not being believed and not being able to tell my allies from my enemies, it got really deep. I found a lot of support. I found a lot of support and help with the CT tenants unions. I found a lot of help with the legal aid people. I stuck, as much darkness as there was in the back scenes of my life. I stuck with the light, with the people at UAC, the people who have different reasons for being here, like their whys are, they're various, but essentially, it doesn't cost anything to do the right thing. It doesn't cost anybody to, ask somebody if they need a bottle of water. It's easy to just keep walking by people, and that's what we've done as a state since probably this state has been, founded. But, Connecticut stands in a unique position to kind of do something monumental and historic, and I think we're on the right track. So as long as you guys keep showing up, I'm sure we'll bump into each other at some point, but I'll keep showing up too. So thanks.
Cool, y'all. Thanks so much.
Good afternoon, you all. Thank you all for being here. My name is Connie Schifferben, and I really appreciate you all showing up today. I want to talk from the heart about something that I've witnessed up close, and not just in passing, but while I was working directly with staff at the Friendship Center here in New Britain. I was there for a short time, but what I saw in that short time has stuck with me. The way that they talk about helping people, I didn't always see that in many ways. The Friendship Center slogan is love made visible. And from my experience and others that we've talked to, that love felt pretty invisible. People were struggling, not just with being unhoused, but with just being treated like human beings. People were treated like they didn't matter. And I didn't like it, I hated to see it. Reason why personally, even too, because I have faced homelessness in the past, and it's been a while. I have 3 kids, so I'm a mother of 3, and I really try my hardest to not go through that situation again. But even when I still want to mispronounce, I forgot her name, but the woman that was just speaking up here, I don't know if we are coming up, sorry, yes. I was really touched by everything that you said, because it resonated with me so much in the past, with just not being heard from your landlord. Even when I tried to get into a shelter with my one daughter, I had one at the time, there was no space. And that to me, when I see how the treatment is, that was something I was like literally desperately dying to get into. And to work in a shelter and see how the treatment was, I was really disgusted by it. I was like, wow, this is what I was trying to rush to get my kid into, and to see that they keep people there for so long and won't place them and give them housing that they need. The housing that they need, they'd rather keep them there for, to me, and what I've witnessed at the Friendship Center, favoritism. I've witnessed favoritism. I've seen people get apartments, and other people that were there, if not just as long or longer, they would go without housing. So that's why it just really, it frustrates me. It frustrates me seeing it, and I'm just gonna continue to always be here in this fight, because it's not just personal. It's just really, it's a right. It's a human right. And so, I would like to see, I would like to see change. So when I was there, I also witnessed people complain about the food being old and spoiled. And so they were right, because when I went into the kitchen, I'd find food and they were way past expiration dates. And I'd go into the kitchen, I'd go into the refrigerator, I would throw them out, because I wouldn't eat it myself. So why feed it to someone else? And so there was also washing machines. The washing machines, they barely washed the clothes as well as they could. They would leave the clothes soaking wet. When they would go to dry them, they wouldn't properly dry, so then people's clothes would have a stench of mildew. And it was nothing that they could really do about it. I put it in emails. I reached out to the management, and nothing was done. And that is something that is just like, it's a basic right. Like, the washing machines are here. This is not something that they're going to a facility, a laundromat, and the laundromat is not working. That's up to the laundromat. But this is what the Friendship Center is providing to the people that's there. The bathrooms, disgusting. Most days they just smell like straight up urine. I know clients would speak up. I spoke up. We were ignored. And so, and that also was sent in emails as well. And so it's hard to see, because these is people, this is human beings. Like, people with pain and stories and dreams. And on top of everything that they're already dealing with, the police are harassing them. Tickets at bus stops, fines that they can't pay. And then when you can't pay, what happens? Jail. So how are we criminalizing homelessness? That's the part that gets me. We're punishing people for not having a place to go. The truth is, a lot of us are out here fighting for this injustice, and it's not just a cause, it's personal for us. And we're showing up, we're organizing, and we're doing what we can because we see the pain up close. We feel the pain. And we need as much support as possible. You can't fix homelessness by pushing people further into the shadows, by ignoring them, by not treating them like human beings. You fix it by treating them like human beings. You fix it by creating safe spaces like this one here, by listening, by showing up, and not just with words, but with action. And so while I was preparing for today, I came across a poem that really touched me, because the burden that this man felt, I felt it. Like, what he shared in this poem, it touched me so much because I too was there. And so it does have a beautiful meaning, a big beautiful story at the end, but I do have to go through parts of it that may, apologize if it may be triggering. But it's called Lost in the Streets by Daryl Holmes. A soul in the streets with nowhere to go, a heart that still beats, though it's lost its home, a mind that still thinks, though it's filled with woe, a life that still exists, though it's on its own. The rain beats down with no shelter in sight. The wind howls loud through the dark and lonely night. The cold grips tight as the hours slowly pass. The weary eyes fight to keep the memories of the past. A heart that once laughed now bears a heavy load. A mind that once dreamed now finds itself alone. A sound that sang now whispers a mournful tune. A life that once had meaning, now just a hopeless roam. No warm embrace to chase away the chill. No gentle voice to soothe the aching heart. No loving smile to bring a brighter day. No hand to hold to guide them through the dark. But they rise with courage, with grace. Still they survive in this unforgiven place. Still they believe in a brighter tomorrow. Still they achieve what they once thought was impossible to follow. So let us not forget the homeless on our street. Let us offer them love, warm beds, and a meal to eat. Let us help them rise, bring back their smile, for every soul in the street is precious and worthwhile. Thank you.
And his name's Elijah. He says, "Hi everyone, and thank you for being here. I want to talk about the reality of what's happening at the Friendship Center, a place that's supposed to offer safety and support, but for many of us, it's been anything but safe. Let me start with why I ended up here. I was trying to get into a domestic violence shelter after escaping an abusive situation. I had attempted suicide, not out of violence, but from deep pain. And that led to a disorderly conduct charge. Because of that charge, I was denied help by every DV shelter I reached out to. So I ended up at the Friendship Center. Not by choice, but because I had nowhere else to go. There are some good staff there, people who care, but their efforts are buried under bad management and a lack of accountability. Most of the serious problems could be fixed, but instead, leadership blames the clients. The environment is unstable. There is drama, retaliation, and a lot of silence, because many people are too afraid to speak up. I've heard people say things like, we should just be grateful we have a roof and a meal. But the truth is, when the conditions are unsafe and the food makes you sick, that's not gratitude, that's survival. And it's not right to tell people to accept conditions that are neither livable nor humane. If you raise concerns, you're labeled a problem. I and others brought our complaints to town hall, but we were ignored and dismissed. It's hard to feel safe or seen when people in power refuse to listen. People with disabilities or health issues are denied basic accommodations. If you ask to stay indoors because of illness, you're told you need a, quote, higher level of care, a polite way of saying, we don't want you here. Meanwhile, everyone is forced out from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., regardless of health. I saw people get worse right in front of staff, and nothing was done. The HVAC broke, dorms overheated, people got sick, there was a bed bug outbreak, and management blamed the clients instead of taking responsibility. Pest control came, the staff admitted they couldn't follow proper procedures due to lack of funding. The food was often cold, low quality, and barely enough. I got food poisoning multiple times with severe GI symptoms. It was dangerous, not just uncomfortable. And when you're already struggling, you don't need your body breaking down too. And the mental health toll, it was real. Many people had breakdowns and episodes from the stress. I have PTSD, and my symptoms, the nightmares, the panic, got worse the longer I stayed. I had a medical marijuana card to help manage that legally, but even that wasn't respected. A staff member tried to confiscate it, acting like it was contraband, not medicine. And here's something that speaks volumes about how bad it really was. People were choosing to leave the Friendship Center without completing their programs. Not because they had a better place to go, but because the environment was so stressful, it felt like being on the streets was safer. I saw people walk away to sleep in parks and alleys anywhere else because the emotional and physical weight of being there became too much. I did the same thing. I moved into an apartment that I already knew probably wouldn't work out. It wasn't stable, it wasn't right, but I took it anyways, just to get out. That's how badly I needed to be away from that place. That's not progress, that's desperation. And all of this leads me to one question I need to ask. One I hope you really think about. The Friendship Center gets a lot of funding. They receive donations from the community, clothes, food, hygiene products, all meant to help people like us. But what I saw was staff and management picking through donations before clients ever had a chance to use them. Yes, they took from the very people they were supposed to be serving. So I ask you, where's the money going? Why are showers broken? Why is the air conditioning failing? Why are people getting sick from food? Why are we expected to suffer and stay silent? People aren't asking for luxury, just safety, just dignity, just something human. So again, I ask you, what kind of help is this really? There is no friendship at the Friendship Center. Thank you. Yeah, Elijah's been through a lot there. And yeah, again, like, Elijah, we know other people who have gotten out there, not because of the help of the caseworkers, but because they figured out something themselves because they just had to, they had no other choice. We see a lot of different issues at the Friendship Center. This issue of caseworkers not actually helping people is very common. We have like contacts that we've worked closely with, that we still work closely with regularly. Some have, there was this one that recently was getting an apartment 4 apartments that they were trying to get fell through because of just like misadministration issues. A lot of times people say, oh, the caseworkers tell me I have an appointment, and then I go, they say, no, I'm busy, come back tomorrow. Come back tomorrow, it's the same thing, no, I'm busy, come back tomorrow. And over again, and it's like, when you have these people who are supposed to be helping you, and then they don't even help you at all, you're just kind of putting in all this more effort to get nothing out of it, then yeah, it's very easy to get demotivated by that, for your situation to just become worse and worse. All of this also happens while the directors are making 6-figure salaries. How are we having all of these issues, but you're making over $100,000? They don't listen to the clients, they don't listen to the staff, and these problems just repeat and worsen. There's a ton more issues, like people will literally be going to the hospital, get kicked out of the shelter because they're not there for that like one day. You get like one day that you can be away from the shelter and then you get kicked out. Yeah, there was one pregnant woman that happened to. And it's like, if I have to go to the hospital, how are you not gonna keep my bed? If I have to like literally go get healthcare. Yeah, all sorts of these issues, the rotten food, just generally like not treating people like human, it's pervasive there. So yeah.
Thank you both so much. So originally we were gonna have a group called CTHRA, or CT Harm Reduction Alliance. They go around and they give out Narcan so people don't overdose and die. And you know, they're pretty cool. They help drive people in the winter to warming centers as well. But unfortunately they couldn't be here today, so we are gonna touch on addiction very briefly. Just from our experiences of like the last 2 years of going out to talk to people in various areas, from like fast track stations to just in general, multiple cities around Connecticut. So we'll be talking about addiction from the perspective of those who are suffering from it, and those that we meet. So, you know, not like a scientific point of view, but just a very like, this is like the other side, this is like the perspective of people. A lot of people get into drug use from stress and trauma. People are looking for ways to cope with it when the real solutions aren't accessible, either due to affordability or just logistically, or there's just a lack of quality. This nightmarish system that we live under that makes us struggle unnecessarily produces misery pretty endlessly. There will always be trauma and stress people have to deal with one way or another. And since homeless people face the stress and trauma of dealing with homelessness and are typically surrounded by, you know, drug use, it's very easy to get hooked. And there are many factors for like why people turn to drugs to deal with stress and trauma. It includes environments, mental health history, drugs you were prescribed. I mean, if we think about the whole opioid epidemic, that was because these doctors were prescribing people with maybe minimum amounts of pain, maybe like whatever. They were prescribing them like opioids. They were prescribing them Oxycontin and hid the facts that there were addictive qualities to this. They said, oh, it wasn't addictive. They lied to millions of people, and now millions of people are hooked on this drug. All this is to say, like, that the blame is not primarily with individuals. Like, yes, of course, people make individual choices, but it's not the primary thing, right? Like, there are all these other things that are happening. And breaking with addiction is not the simple thing. Sure, some people can go cold turkey and that's great, but some people, it's like, you can't really do that. You know, and many who are able to get treated and like go to programs, sometimes they do go back to, you know, using drugs or drinking for various factors, and a lot of it being like the environment they are around. And just to kind of emphasize this point a little bit, that it's not solely on individuals for drug use, mind-altering substances, and this is like a little history, mind-altering substances have been used for centuries against the masses of people, both as a way to profit and to keep oppressed people content with their conditions of life. And this can be seen in like the way, I mean, people have heard of the opium wars in China, right? That was the British basically saying, we're gonna continue pumping opium into China so that the workers stay docile. It's when they used whiskey to keep Irish immigrants working in like the mines and indigenous people docile. It's how heroin and cocaine were introduced into these impoverished areas, as shown in The Politics of Heroin, a book by Alfred McCoy, as shown by investigative journalist Gary Webb, who mysteriously committed suicide, right? He was the one who proved the CIA's involvement in the cocaine trade when it first was introduced in the 70s and 80s. It's not a conspiracy, like these things are very true. Former acting director of the CIA, John Doach, admitted the CIA was complicit in trafficking cocaine. So all this to say, like, drug users aren't the ones growing the poppy plants needed for heroin, nor are they the ones growing the coca plants needed for cocaine. It's the kingpins, it's the system, it's the people at the top in the illegal economy that are the ones who are profiting off of this, who need to be primarily blamed. And yes, individuals should make better choices, but when they are surrounded by all this, not only misery, but by the supply, it's hard to just tell people to stop. And yeah, just this, and the reason we're talking about this today is addiction is so prevalent among homeless people, and it needs to be approached with empathy, and it needs to be approached with this understanding that it is not just on individuals, it is a systemic thing that we need to address. So, with that, this wraps up our section on the shortcomings of the shelter system. Before we take another quick 10-minute break, we're going to do another Q&A. So if people have questions, I am here to answer them. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put a hand up. Yes, Alexis.
Yeah, you was talking about the lady who she was pregnant and she lost her bed. She got discharged from the shelter. Did she like fight to get it back? Was she ever able to go back?
So what I've heard, right, because we never were able to meet her directly. We tried to get her number from someone we know that's in the shelter, but we never heard back. We followed up, never heard back. So I don't know what ended up happening. I know that there was like talk of, oh yeah, like we're gonna get her back in, we're gonna like try and fight it. I don't know what ended up happening with that. I would imagine that she did, because I feel like if she didn't, there'd be more of an outrage and outpour of like anger. So yeah, I'm sorry I can't answer that, but basically it was like, yeah, she went to the hospital. Because a lot of the times what it is, with the Friendship Center specifically, the staff will claim, oh, you didn't tell us that, but people are like, no, we did. And then the staff are like, well, you didn't fill out this form. So it's very much, it is like a technicality. But even then, the humanity that you should have to be like, oh, you know, you didn't fill out this form, but hey, you were pregnant. You know what I mean? So it's just like that lack of humanity that's very alarming. I would want to believe that if we weren't getting calls from people in there like, oh my god, they like kicked someone out, then I would hope that they let them back in. But this was a few months ago. But yeah. Yes.
But wouldn't their release papers give it off from the hospital? Wouldn't their release papers automatically put them back into the shelter? That's mandatory?
You would think, right? I think like they do ask for medical documentation to prove you were there, but I think it was like the Friendship Center wasn't even like interested in hearing about it. They were just like, oh, you know, but you didn't even tell us in the first place. That you know, it They were trying to get it on like a technicality, like you didn't fill out these forms, so therefore like it's frustrating. It's messed up.
I think we should do something in front of the friendship center.
Oh yeah, and we will continue doing stuff. Yes.
I did have a different job, so I did work with case management. So I think case management is supposed to like make sure the patient is able to like discharge to like wherever they should be discharged to safely, whether it's the friendship center or at least like another place where they can alternatively go to. So that's also what I wanted to bring up. But also I did have a question about Elijah's story at the beginning. It was said that they attempted suicide, so they ended up being charged with misconduct. Can you tell me more about that? I've never heard about that as like a hope that's just what had happened.
You know, he has mentioned this to me before. I wouldn't know. What I know is that he was living with family, and I don't know like the specifics, nor do I think I should like air that out necessarily. I think like maybe they, honestly, I don't know. I don't want to speculate, you know what I mean?
That's okay. I was more like trying to understand like the legality behind it because I've never heard about it before. That's what I was asking.
I would assume maybe like the family, if they were already kind of abusive, like saw that as like a threat to them. And that, I mean, I would assume, I would have to, I don't know.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
I also just want to say disorderly conduct is normally like a very easy charge to get. They will throw that on like anyone. Like you don't actually need to be doing much. If a cop wants to charge you with disorderly conduct for being outside and talking to someone, they could. Like,
Yeah.
like it's very much like a baseline charge that they'll just throw out there because they don't need to prove much.
Yeah. No, good to know. Anything else? Any other questions before we begin the break? Yes, Marcin.
Hi, Mike. I have a question about tomorrow, another couple days. What's going on in New Britain? Coming the heat accessory. Where are people that stay tomorrow, like the Sunday, library is closed?
Yeah.
Make sure they cool down. The city do something or?
Yeah, man, we were talking about that before. When the library is closed, where do people go? Where can people go?
Special tomorrow, Sunday start. It's in the weather. So
Oh, yeah, it's like.
heat accessory.
Yeah, it's
okay?
gonna be a heat
Monday
advisory.
and Tuesday, okay, is library.
Yeah, library, but yeah, exactly. So that's one of
What's
the
happening
things.
tomorrow? Tomorrow is Sunday, library is closed.
Yeah.
Where people is going cool down after the check the weather is heat accessory.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so is there like a crisis response intervention team out here? That like if somebody was having a mental health episode or something like that, can they like accompany the police or something?
Do you know the answer to that, Luis?
Can you answer that?
Do you want the mic?
Sure. Thanks. To answer that, I go to CMHA down here downtown. We have a crisis team that will come out to see us if we have a mental health crisis. I'll give the example. I had one 3 weeks ago. I had a mental health crisis. I had my whole team come out and check on me because they haven't seen me or heard from me for the last 3 weeks. So we do have a mental health crisis team here. We also have a victim advocate team here in New Britain. So we do have a mental health crisis team here.
We have one too in New Haven. It's called Elm City Compass. I think we got something like that. Thank you.
You know, we're told from a young age, oh, if you want something done, if you want life to get better, go to like city meetings, go talk to your local elected official, go run for whatever position. But the thing is, that's a trap. I mean, people have been doing that, for like 50 plus years in this country, and it's never really gotten us anywhere. So we're gonna talk about that today. So I'm gonna pass it off to Luis. All right.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I'm gonna start off with a so-called mayor, Erin Stewart. Obviously, she's bad. The reason why I said this, because we have a lot of homeless people here in New Britain. She could have used our taxpayers' money to build buildings in New Britain, to take homelessness, to take showers and places to stay. Without that, she used the money to build the bridge, to build these electricity buildings of ours. What kind of crap is that for a mayor? Actually, this is what else I'm gonna say about this so-called mayor of ours. If she can't run a town, how can she run a state for governor?
Right, that's right.
All right, let me also say, Tim O'Brien, he was also a mayor here in New Britain. He tried to do good, but it was okay, but I was disappointed in him too, because he was supposed to be for the homeless. He was just like Erin Stewart, so we had two corrupt mayors here in town. He did dumb shit like Erin Stewart does. Many of you know what I'm talking about. Neither of them could have stopped homelessness. So come together with us and help us stop this and help us get the right people in office so we can see a change for the homeless in New Britain.
What's up? It's really like not even about who's in office, because like no matter what, they're not going to be able to fix anything. Like a city mayor is just one individual tied up in a complex net of committees, boards, funding arrangements, political parties, councils, all that nonsense. Yeah, they live in the shadow of a governor, the House, the Senate, the president, and their people. And so anything that like one individual politician is gonna do to make change, it's gonna be shallow. They can trim like the odd hedge, they can clip the odd weed, but it's the rotten roots of our systems of power that we actually need to rip out if we want real change. You can't do that with a mayor, you can't do that with an ordinance, you're not gonna do it with a vote. And you know, sure, some individual politicians are decent people. And so being decent people, sometimes they even try to do the right thing. And like we know they're not gonna solve homelessness from within the system that causes it, but sometimes they'll try and try to enact changes that can lessen the damage of the attacks on the homeless to some degree. But honestly, you can't even rely on those changes sticking. So back in 2012, Tim O'Brien, right? He waged this campaign against blight in the city. So basically all those like really nasty abandoned buildings that, you know, look like they haven't been touched for a minute. Maybe they're even a little hazardous, you know, that landlords are just sitting on. So part of the plan was to actually increase the fine on those absentee owners. So instead of just being able to sit on those empty buildings, you'd have to, you know, rent these places out and keep them in good condition, or you'd face the fines and start building up. And so this actually, you know, obviously drew the fury of those landlords who didn't want to pay. But O'Brien succeeded to raise that fine up to like $250 a day per unit, which sounds nice, right? You know, sounds like if the landlords have no real choice but to rent to people, there should be fewer people on the streets, right? So what actually happened? What happened was more than 200 landlords showed up to Common Council in so-called protest, slapping caution tape over their mouths and acting like the changes were an attack on the people of the city generally. They even spent money getting like 20 tenants to show up, like, you know, support their enemy. And then Erin Stewart's administration, you know, obviously that undid whatever that progress was, so it was like nothing even happened in the first place. And you know, we hear about abandoned buildings all the time. People point to them and say, you know, why can't the city do something with these buildings? Why can't they use them to house the homeless? And here's your answer. Where we live, money comes first, not the needs of the people. And without any financial incentive, people who own property and hoard wealth have no reason to use them for anyone's benefit but their own. And when faced with pressure to change, they and their political allies have the power to snuff out anything that would force them to switch things up. And obviously, O'Brien's changes wouldn't have guaranteed housing for all or anything like that. But the intention to help was there, you know, it was a good intention. But at the end of the day, a good intention limited by a bad system does nothing. It's the same story with our city council. In 2024, New Britain Alderwoman Lori McAdam proposed some changes to city ordinances that would help a little bit, you know. One change would have changed the language to the ordinance prohibiting loitering to clarify, quote, "Nothing in this article shall be construed to prohibit individuals to sit, stand, eat, consume non-alcoholic beverages, converse," oh, I forgot sleep, sleep's big, sleep, converse, pray, and or read in public places, parks, and sidewalks. So basically, if you were on public property doing nothing wrong, just hanging around, which is language they use in the ordinance, just hanging around and minding your business, you couldn't be ticketed for loitering. If you were sleeping on a public bench at night because you didn't have a bed, you couldn't be ticketed for loitering. Which, you know, sounds nice, right? Well, what happened is that this ordinance was struck down and never seriously considered by the rest of the council. And local business owners were brought in to oppose the bill too. There's also another proposal that McAdams and others backed up, which would have reduced the city's ridiculous $99 panhandling fee to $10 for the first instance, $15 for the second, and then $20 for any after that, which is something. The reason that this wasn't a complete removal of the fine, which it should have been, was to compromise, but not even that watered down version passed. What this shows us is that playing the politics game in New Britain hasn't stopped the criminalization of homelessness. It never will. When we're out on the street or at the fast track, talking to people about the attacks on the homeless and how to stop them, we're often told, just bring it to city council, you know? Make sure you vote for this mayor or for that one, for the right governor, for the right president. When we're also told, like, just vote for the right guy, as if like the next election cycle is gonna magically fix things. You know, like the perfect ballot is gonna let freedom flow in this country, which, you know, is understandable. You know, we grow up believing that the only way to win is to play by our oppressor's rules, right? You know, we grow up thinking that we can get justice if we just commit to doing things the right way. There's also like the idea of like the lesser evil, which is like something I've been dealing with for a long time, because like, you know, you can hold this idea that at least if there's a less terrible set of politicians, then you can fight back easier, which sounds nice, but it doesn't really make that much sense, because they're both still evil. Like a lesser evil is still an evil. You know, it's the same game, the same rules, no matter which variant of evil you're playing with. So recently I've been thinking, like, if the game is rigged against us, what's the point of, you know, bothering with it when we could focus fully on tearing that game down? Because we're not going to win by going through the proper channels for change. We see them as dead ends. At best, they give people a feeling of accomplishment for shallow and easily reversible changes. At worst, they set the stage for movements to die out. They set the stage for them to burn out, for them to lose steam. So basically, they're where the masses fighting spirit goes to die. And this isn't an ego thing or us being like stubborn or annoying, like over all that. Because when people tell us to go through the proper channels, we tell them that we already tried. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Common Council a little bit. I don't personally recommend going there, but you know, we've tried it. Dare to Struggle has tried it. December 13th, 2023, Dare to Struggle's Pack the Park March and takeover of City Hall's Common Council. Homeless people, backed up by Dare to Struggle and folks from around the city, spoke at the podium about the gentrification, the harassment, and the abuse that homeless people were dealing with. You know, those very same attacks that we're still talking about here today in this room. And those of us who were there demand that the city and its hospital, the shelters, and the businesses put an end to these attacks. and we called for the city to prepare a plan by the next meeting. So we showed back up, January 10th, 2024, and we came back. We called the council out for not even making the slightest changes. Not even the bare minimum of putting some benches back on Arch Street or removing the $99 loitering fine that people are still dealing with could even show up on the agenda. Because the best they could apparently do was propose a committee on housing and homelessness, which, by the way, still has never passed. So where did that get us? All the work of those politicians who tried to do good from inside the system got us nowhere. All our work to pressure the council into action got us nowhere. Despite our best efforts, we played the losing game and we lost. And it's not like we could have won by begging harder or making a more emotional case or by voting for the right representatives. The truth is, as long as money dominates our society, as long as cash and coins gunk up its insides and block the flow of resources and of power and of freedom, the only way to get what we want is to take it. And to do that, we'll need mass organizations that build up our collective power, demolish the dominance of the rich and the powerful, and shape people like you and you and you and you and me into leaders who will make history. And to do that, we'll need HLI.
So Homeless Liberation Initiative, led by former and current homeless people, it is a watchdog group for the homeless. So many people have expressed to us, shelters are doing this, the cops are doing this, we tell politicians, and they don't care. They don't do anything. And there's this dire need for a watchdog group. And we want to be that watchdog group where people can call us and say, hey, this is what's going on. We can turn that into an exposure post. And what we mean by this is something happened, we put whoever's to blame on blast, and use that public pressure to get them to stop doing it. Another thing with Homeless Liberation Initiative is that people who come and are like members in this, they are not treated as clients. They're treated as equals, they're treated as people with ideas, makers of history, and leaders. And that's something important. You know, a lot of nonprofits, you know, a lot of them are service-oriented. That serves a purpose, that's good, but it also relegates people to clients. And we see people as more than clients. Something that is also different with Homeless Liberation Initiative is its insistence on getting justice for people, its insistence on fighting for the truth. We are committed to the people, and we are not limited by any sort of corporate or nonprofit funding. If people want to donate to us, they can donate to us. That goes to printing, that goes to being able to rent spaces, print flyers like these that you see up here, print banners. Nothing is holding us back. There's never going to be a time where we're going to censor ourselves because we're going to lose money. And another thing that we're not limited by is reform. So like, when I say reform, I mean like, you know, small things that are watered down, like getting rid of the $99 tickets homeless people get for loitering, that were just, you know, reduced in fines. Like, we're not limited to, oh, we have to appease this politician, so like we can't talk bad about anything, you know. We're not limited through a political sponsor either. Like, we will trash anybody who gets in the way or involved in the rights of homeless people or attacks them. We don't play nice just to save face. We will fight until these attacks against the homeless end, along with homelessness itself. That's the long-term goal. So that is why HLI, it's because we have no limits. We'll go after anybody who fucks with the homeless. So, as far as this summer, right now, you know, when we go out to the fast track, people are pissed off at the cops. They're just like messing with me. People down here are pissed off that there's no bathrooms, that local businesses like the Assembly Room mistreat them, that the Friendship Center mistreats people, does some pretty messed up things. Those are embers. We see those as embers, and we want to fan those embers, right? And people kind of accuse us of like, oh, y'all just like start shit. But the people who started shit are the cops, are the shelters, or the shelter directors, and the local businesses who just don't want to be like a human towards homeless people. So we're trying to fan that so that it stops. So what we want to do this summer is we have these things called speak outs. We basically just get to a public place. We have a megaphone or a mic. We encourage people to come up and speak bitterness, speak to their day-to-day conditions, speak what they're mad about, whether it's about the cops or the shelter. We want to do more of those and more, I guess, impromptu or on the spot. So like, for example, there's a sweep at the fast track, people just got kicked out by the cops. Like, we want to be there and we want to get people on the mic and we want them to like shout down the cops with us. Like, that's something we want to do because that shows people that like people are standing up to this and not afraid. Or like we show up to Arch Street after cops just went through ticketing a bunch of people for, you know, just hanging outside, maybe they're drinking, like who can, like it's a nice day, people drink outside, you know what I mean? And maybe we show up after a bunch of people get tickets and we go down to the police station and we shout out, or we shout down them from the outside, we you know, confront them. So that's something we want to do in July, is like these impromptu speak outs, show up to where these oppressors are like messing with people and really just let them have it. And that shows people that, again, they don't have to be afraid, they're not alone, that they can stand up to this, that they don't have to take this anymore. Something else we want to do is training up our people and being able to make what we call agitation. And when I say agitation, I mean things that agitate people. Like, people already know the issues, but sometimes you really gotta be blunt and you really gotta just like draw people in. So you gotta say the most like biting stuff. You're like it's like a sales pitch to like struggle. You know, like this is the thing that happened. And we wanna make more of these exposure posts and videos because it's great that we're talking about this now in person. People are online. They need to see that this stuff is happening and they need to see like it for like what it is. We can't sugarcoat it. We have to be very clear about like what this is. So, and we could all like talk after if people here want to get more involved, but like we will train people up in that skill. And being able to have these good exposures, this very quick analysis will help us grow our numbers and will lead to this stuff stopping. Less sweeps at the fast track. Shelter directors being more afraid to mess with their clients. It spreads the awareness of how homeless people are criminalized. It's how we mobilize people in different ways, whether people care about the cops, the shelters. You know, we want to get people pissed off enough and at the same time inspired enough to join. And honestly, if anybody here has a story that they want to tell about being criminalized while homeless, like come speak to us after. Because that is something that should be told. Also, with the end of July, it's going to be a bunch of we have a contact list of over 400 people. We want to get in touch with them all again, invite them to meetings, because we're sitting on 400 contacts. That is potentially 300 people that could get involved. And we want to make sure we do this with all of our current leaders in Homeless Liberation Initiative. Because it's not just one or two people doing everything. We want everybody to be doing what they can. Because individualism is so widespread in our society, and we need to get back to a more collective way of thinking where people are doing things together for real. August is going to be a lot of training, strengthening the leadership of HLI, making sure we continue doing exposure posts, and August is going to also be a little bit of, I won't call it rest because we're still doing stuff, but no big events, right? Because we want to plan for the fall. Because we need to take a week or two to plan. So that's what we're gonna be doing. And I just want, before I transfer it to Kimmy, I just want to end like, you know, real change like is possible. This is real and this is possible to confront our oppressors and to actually stop this shit. We believe that and like we'll die for that. This isn't gonna be a quick flashy scheme of playing politics, you know, and simply doing protests every week. There is no get rich quick scheme for this. We need to build relationships with people, and that takes time. And the more relationships we build, the more members we get, the more power we have, the more able we are to confront these people and like make them scared so that they will actually finally listen to us and confronting our oppression. And it's long work and the years, but it's entirely worth it because nothing else is happening. Nothing else is like going to happen. And it's gonna take all of you here getting involved with us. A lot of people we meet are like, oh, thank you for the work you do. And it's like, no, you need to come with us because we're not trying to be saviors. You know, that's never worked. There's no one leader leads the mass. No, it's the masses leading the masses at the end of the day. So get involved with us, be there with us when we confront people. Our Instagram, Facebook, you know, information is back there. Come talk to one of us in the yellow shirts after. It'll be the best decision of your life, to be honest. It was mine. So I'm gonna leave it to Kimmy now to end us off on an inspiring note, and then we'll be done with the program.
Yeah, so like this summer of struggle, this summer of like speaking our bitterness and like hot on the heels of like stuff that goes down in town, like we need you all to let us know when things happen so that we can expose that stuff. So that we can like show people like how fucked up this system is and move them into action with us. So like Mike was saying, like there's no get rich quick scheme. Like it's going to be a long road ahead, but it's worthwhile. It really is. And like we need to expose like how fundamentally messed up this system is. Like it should not be lost on us that in the richest country in the world we can't house everyone. Like we look outside and there's all these abandoned buildings sitting there vacant and people are like without homes. Like it's not logical and we can't let that slide. We have to take it into our own hands and do something about that. And so yeah, this like speaking bitterness, it's like based in history that they don't want us to remember. And so I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. So like in the here and now, there's like all these abandoned buildings. And why is it, right, that we can't like just go take them over and go live in them, right? And we talked about like throughout the course of today's programming, like why under the current system that isn't possible. Like why like reforms, if they're lucky enough to get passed, they don't last. The next politicians to come into power can just reverse them. Voting in the next politician, even if they're well-intentioned, isn't going to be the way out because there's always a level above to keep that person, no matter how motivated and like as like good of like opinions they have, like they're always going to be kept in check. Like every council member, they're kept in check by a mayor. Every mayor, they're kept in check by a governor, and so on. And so it has to be us, right? And so like the reason these buildings outside to bring it back, right? We can't just like go take them over and live in them is because of the profit motive, right? These buildings are owned by like sometimes it's the government, sometimes it's private owners. And like the people who own the buildings control like what happens with those buildings. And so like maybe the buildings sit empty, and so the private owners aren't motivated to do the right thing, they're only motivated by profit. So it might cost too much to renovate the building and get it into a condition where it can be used again and lived in. And maybe like the building's in fine condition, but the private owner is literally just like sitting on it, waiting for the value to go up so that they can sell it for a higher profit. Like, meanwhile, people are fucking homeless, right? Like, the system is not logical. Yeah, and this is all like part of this process called like financial speculation. Like, we live in like finance capital bro world. Like, it's a fucking like Orwellian, like dystopian nightmare. So, yeah, like throughout history, there have been movements of people that have like overcome things that are just as bad as it is like right now, but like they want us to forget. So like, let's take a journey for a second, and remember that like when people are in power, when the people like us, not like rich, wealthy like rulers, when the people are in power, like you can get shit done. So let's take a journey to 1950s rural China. It's a very different place, right? But it's probably not hard to imagine that the landlords back then were parasites, just like the landlords today, right? And so at this time, the people had just recently taken over the government. The people took over, the people had power. And so during this time, there were peasants who worked the land, they produced food, but meanwhile the landlords were just like being parasitic, like making profit, making money purely because they own the land and not contributing to anything. And under this government, the people ousted the landlords. And for the first time in these people's lives, the peasants each got a plot of their own land, and they were able to work collectively and produce food for the needs of society instead of lining people's pockets, right? And this was possible because the people took power. And the process that made this possible was like ousting the landlords, and this looked like literally speaking bitterness. Like in the streets, the landlords would be like ganged up on by all of the peasants, and like actual justice was served. Like people would like berate them, like air their grievances, like, and that's what we're imagining like here in New Britain as well, like speaking your bitterness and just speaking the truth to like confront the people who are causing this. And so yeah, like this example, like this process of this like faraway land in a long ago time, like it went on to inspire movements like the Black Panther Party, like the Young Lords. And so they were drawing from these like lessons in history and bringing that to the United States. So like the Young Lords, they took over tuberculosis vans when their neighborhoods in New York City weren't being adequately screened for tuberculosis. They took over a hospital when the hospital care was not like meeting the needs of the community. And so like this inspired like movements of people for years after. And since then, like the government, like they kind of like squashed that memory. They kind of made it so that we don't remember that these things are true, these things actually happened. And so what we need to do is build that up again. And that's what we're trying to do in HLI. And so, yeah, like what does it take to get to that point, right? And like Mike was saying, like there's no get rich quick scheme. Like it's a long, grueling road ahead, but it's really worth it. And like what that looks like is building a massive fighting force of people, of us, like the everyday people, under the leadership of those who are most affected by these issues, guided by the people who are most affected, so that we can oust the ultra rich and the rulers of this society and do things like house everyone, right? Do things that like run, like make the decisions that run the society in a fucking logical way. Like, and it's not just housing, it's like healthcare, it's education, it's everything, right? And so we'd be able to make the decisions that make sense and meet the needs of the people instead of lining the pockets of those who are ruling and motivated by profit. And so, yeah, it takes work, it takes dedication, it takes a lot of smaller steps along the way to like even reach the point of like the Young Lords, even reach the point of like 1950s, 60s China or whatever. But to like really take on this fight and root out like what is at the core of what makes this society like so fundamentally fucked up and what keeps us all down, like it's worth it. And I really like urge all of you to like join this fight with us, with Homeless Liberation Initiative, with Dare to Struggle. And so like Fred Hampton said, like peace to you if you're willing to fight for it. So we invite you to join us. So, thank you.
Cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, and you mentioned the Young Lords, so I'll just say this, like, guess how the Young Lords in East Harlem and New York City in the 1960s, there was a huge issue with the garbage. There was garbage everywhere, it was gross. Residents were complaining about it. They'd go to city hall meetings, whatever, city wouldn't take them seriously. They'd probably hurl a anti-Puerto Rican slur at them because, it's the 1960s, New York City. The thing that helped get the trash issue resolved was the Young Lords with the residents burning trash or just putting trash in the middle of busy intersections, basically like messing up traffic for 20 blocks, creating a real problem for the city government until they finally were like, okay, I guess we'll take care of the trash because now it's, this is a problem for us. And, so that's just an example of a direct action of they tried begging politicians, they even tried sweeping the sidewalks themselves, and nobody was really down to do that because they're just why do we have to do that? But when they made it a problem for the city, when they did something that made it a problem for the city and then got people involved, they were able to actually change something. So that's kind of the spirit with how we need to approach this, getting in their faces, making it a problem for them so they can't ignore us. That's kind of the approach we need to do. And we can't keep playing nice with them. I mean, Connecticut had this rent control law 2 years ago where 200 people testified, and then the people on the housing committee, all landlords, were no. So enough of playing nice with these politicians. We need to confront them and put them in their place because they're playing with people's lives. Not just politicians, the landlords, cops, people who are a daily nuisance to everybody out here just trying to struggle and survive. So I just wanted to leave y'all with that. So are there any other questions before we wrap up today? This could be the final Q&A. Yes.
Yeah, that rent control bill you was talking about 2 years ago, that was captive rent. I stayed up until 3 a.m. to testify online for that. So
Yeah, raise your hand if you testified for that. Yeah, it's crazy, right? And at the end of the day, it was no, we don't want him. And not only does that expose the bankruptcy of these people, but it kind of demoralizes people a little bit because you're oh man, I stayed up, I testified, I did what I was supposed to do, what I've been told I was supposed to do for since I was a kid, and they still said no. Well, I don't care. Fuck that. Whatever. And that's why we need why we stress that we don't do that. Not because we want to be cool or whatever. It's because we understand that leads people down to demoralization. People don't want to fight anymore because they see that they do work and then it leads nowhere, back to square one. It's tough for people, and I get it. But then there are the people who keep fighting, and I think we need to be approaching this from outside of those, not completely ignoring it. We can comment on legislation, we could be but there are better ways to interact with it. So. Sorry, did you have anything else to say on that? I kind of started talking.
I totally agree, because clearly just going up and asking isn't working, so maybe we can throw some demands in the mix at some point soon. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Throw demands, throw things, Cool. Alright, thank you for that. Anyone else? And it could be a comment too, it doesn't need to be a question. The audience has thinned out a bit, but any other questions before we wrap up?
Thanks for everything.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, I asked this before, but I guess I'll put it in as I know that we're doing work around here in New Britain and then Middletown, and I know you guys had started out in Hartford. Are there any other towns that you guys are thinking about working with, or is it what direction are we going with that?
That is a great question and an exciting one too. So yeah, we don't limit ourselves. I mean, we're Dare to Struggle, Connecticut. We haven't been to every town, so we've been in New Britain primarily. Hartford, we're gonna start having general meetings there. And we've done some outings there in Bristol. We were working with a family whose loved one was killed by police brutality, Jabal Connolly's family, for a bit in New Haven. I think the plans for that, right? Like, we don't want to limit ourselves. We also don't want to like stretch ourselves thin and like overcommit to an area and let people down. I think the trajectory, like if I had to guess, we haven't, I guess, explicitly like talked about this, but we're in New Britain. There's Hartford connected by the fast track. Our people can get between meetings more easily than like a New Haven to New Britain. I guess like if I had to guess, stick around here for now, like Bristol, Hartford, New Britain, East Hartford, whatever. And then as we get more members down in New Haven, we can kind of start doing stuff there as well, you know? Because that way we have people, because love a 45-minute drive, but you know, it's better if we can respond to stuff when it happens. And if we have people already there, it's like a 5-10 minute like drive or bus ride versus like a 50 minutes. So it's like about effectiveness as well. Yeah. But no, I mean, there are no limits. Like if we went to Bridgeport because Deshaun Best was murdered by Bridgeport police. Pretty messed up. I mean, they're all messed up, but it's a tragic case. We went down there to just march with the protest the family was happening, and you know, we haven't done a whole lot just because Bridgeport's an hour from here. But you know, we felt it was important to be there at least and just bring some signs and give our condolences, you know, and just be like, anything we can do, just like hit us up. Like if you want us to share GoFundMe, if you want to do an interview, if you want us to help you with the protest. And I think, you know, they're in the grieving stages right now, but we will respond when we can to stuff. Oh,
and like, if there's a town you would want us to be in, and you know people in that town, let those people know. Have them come here, see what we do, get into HLI and Dare to Struggle, and then we could start working with them out in their town. It's just about like having the people there. So
definitely, yeah. So if you have any suggestions, let us know. Or leads.
I was sharing with Tanea, and she was interested to know as well. She was like, "Oh, what other towns are they working with?" I was like, that's a good question.
Good question, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, no, honestly, nothing's off limits. So, cool.
Yes. I know the representative in Hampden, Lori Sweet, and Sarah Gallagher, they are on a a homeless decriminalization task force along with Kadeem Richards out of Norwalk. So you might have some friends and like, you know, people already kind of working towards these same similar issues in Hampden for sure. Because I'm really proud to at least be in close proximity to, you know, some heavy hitters, and they definitely, you know, I don't want to speak for them, but there's not too much trust in Hampden for our mayor in New Haven, Mayor Elliger. So yeah.
Okay.
Be interesting next year.
Yeah. That'd be good to talk. Cool. All right, y'all. Well, thank you for coming to the forum today. Please stay behind if you want to get involved. Talk to any of us in the yellow shirts or the black and white shirts. And yeah, thank you for coming.